So when you try to work against the ego, you just make it stronger. And that is one of the reasons that a monastery is such a battleground, because when people start, they think that, I'm going to tame this fucker. I'm going to rule, and I'm going to make sure that my ego will learn its place.
Ego versus ego.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's your own ego versus your own ego, and it just gets stronger. And then
Martin Steller is a coach and a consultant for ethical selling and business growth, recognized by business leaders across the globe as the #1 authority on ethical selling. Martin is also a former monk, and he has spent 12 years in a monastery where, as he said, he wanted to learn something. In this episode, Martin describes with humor and passion his experiences and tells us more about why being a monk is like a war ground. What did Martin learn during his spiritual practice? Why you should let go of everything bits by bits before it's too late? Why it's not the ego, but our self-importance that has to die. Please support the show by liking and sharing this episode on social media, and to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, sign up for our newsletter at deafandgout.com. It will also be a massive help to us if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can do right now by simply clicking the subscribe button. Now, enjoy this episode, Taming the Ego.
What's it like being a monk?
it's very, very tough.
In what way?
It's very confrontational. People have this idea that it's all very peaceful and it's loving brothers together and all sharing a cause and you're working together and peace and harmony and blossom-scented gardens. And it's not. It's a war ground. Every day you run into your own ego and your selfishness. And if you don't run into your own, it's somebody else's ego and selfishness. And you get the battle of the egos. That is really, really tough, because no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you try to apply yourself to the practice and keep yourself in check and resolve to do things differently in the future, you're a human being. And so every bit of frailty and lingering bit of selfishness will come back at you and get thrown in your face. In normal life, you'll be confronted with yourself and your shortcomings and humanness in a way that you can bypass, that you can overlook, that you can reason away. In a monastery, it's there. It hits you as hard as it possibly can, because you're here because you want to learn something. So learn it, damn it.
Yeah.
And that every goddamn day. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. And then you get phases where you enter in what the Sufis call a station. You'll reach a state. So it's a temporary deepening of your awareness, of your presence, of connecting with your deeper self, or whatever name you want to use for it. But those states are temporary, they're transient. And then, you find yourself more attuned and you think, oh, that's wonderful, I wish it could stay, and it's gone. So wanting that state to remain makes sure that it goes away right away.
It just says that you can link that to the whole grasping for life
Pretty much.
against death thing. Bearing in mind you were told to learn every day, God damn it, right?
Well, I wasn't told to. It's just life, it's just a situation there. Nobody was beating me or giving me harsh treatment. It was just a situation that either I would create by my actions or lack of actions, or by being around people who were dealing with their own stuff.
I have a question, a very important question, because you said you went there to learn something. This is what you wanted, just to learn something. So, very powerful question. What did you learn?
Love is it.
Love is it. That's it.
I think so. I mean, everything else that I can say I've learned. Yeah, I've learned how to be more open to self-reflection and introspection. Yeah. I've learned to appreciate self-awareness, but that's also very superficial, because while I've learned a bit about this and a bit about that, I'm still very much a human being and I make the same mistakes. And in fact, in the last couple of weeks, I had some pretty, well, I'd call them beautifully harsh realizations thrown at me to do with my decisions, the way I treat people, and my selfishness. You know, I like to consider myself a good egg, somebody who's there for others. But I had to face the fact that, yeah, that's a very nice story I tell myself, but really I'm just as selfish as the next person, right? So what did I learn? Well, I learned the most important lessons, but at the same time, I learned nothing at all. And that's the point. You don't learn things in the monastery. You submit yourself to a process of surrender, which causes you to change gradually over time. And in that sense, linking back to death, you learn to die to elements of yourself. You learn to die to things that you thought were important. And opinions, for example, are a really, really important thing there. Because I have to tell you this because I opine so and so, and you need to see that because that is my opinion, and I've studied this or I have the experience, and listen to me. Just listen. I promise you're going to. That's just me. That's my ego trying to assert itself, trying to dominate somebody else's ego, saying, "You're wrong. I'm right. Shut the fuck up. I'm going to tell you something." So. Yeah, you learn to put that in perspective, and that is in a way dying to your own ego importance. I stopped living like a monk. I was relieved of my vows 12 years ago. So for me, that life died, but at the same time, I still feel very much the same. You can take a monk out of a monastery, but you can't take the monastery out of the monk. I live a normal life, you know, with all the ups and downs and all the vices that you could possibly imagine. Well, not all of them, but lots of them.
That's very disappointing, Martin.
I'm not here to please. But on the inside, you know, even though everything about the shape of my life and the activities and the people and the decisions, responsibilities has changed, on the inside, I still feel very much the same. I'm committed to the same mission, and I am obliged by my own choice to keep on the same path of growth, discovery, development, service, really. That has not changed.
I just got to ask a question on that, to try and stay on the same path of growth and learning. For what purpose? And I don't necessarily mean in terms of a destination, but what's the underlying purpose in that for you?
For me, I never had a vocation. Growing up, I considered myself an agnostic, maybe atheist. I don't really remember. I was just deadly curious to learn people and to learn myself. Deep fascination with psychology. And so, yeah, I met people who meditated, and they said, "Yeah, come sit with us," and did that. And I started going more frequently, started spending the nights and helping out in the kitchen and the painting. And I grew into this community because it was extremely wholesome for me. So just an eagerness to discover more than what you can get from books. Because I read a lot, and it was nice, but it was all up here. You know, it's shelf knowledge. It's nice for the mind, but it doesn't change you in the way that I want it to change.
And that goes back to what you said about when you said you don't really learn it. It's just that you change over time. So it's an experiential learning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
As opposed to an intellectual gaining of knowledge and then application through. So it's more of a morphing into it rather than than a linear path of I'm here and I want to get to here.
It's not so much morphing, it's you know how in the writer's world they say you should kill your darlings? Like if you write a sentence and you go, "Oh man, that's beautiful," you have to scrap that sentence. Because when you think that is very beautiful, that's your darling, and that is overdone, it's over the top, it's going to break the plot, it's going to disconnect the reader. So the things that you're attached to in writing, those are the bits that you should leave out. You should kill your darlings. And in spiritual evolution or unfolding or uncovering, whatever you want to call it, whether it's in a monastery or not, you have to kill your darlings as well. You have to, you'll face yourself over and over again with the same elements of ego that make you unhappy, that hurt others, that cause obstruction, that keep you locked in the same place, until you get to the point that you say, this bit, I'm done with it. I'm going to kill this attachment, this darling, and live without it. So it's more leaving behind, a letting go of things, than it is a morphing or changing. You change by the way, through the process of letting go of things.
I want to come back and listen to this because there's so much in there, and it resonated on so many levels. Can you share any examples of things from coming out of the monastery and looking at what people would consider a normal life, the kind of things that we might find beneficial in letting go of?
Yeah. Everything. Look, you're going to get to the point where you will have to let go of everything, no matter how much you cling.
That's the death bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I've heard about it. So they say that if you die before you die, you won't die when you die. It's said in different ways in different traditions. It's notably famous in that format from Japanese traditions, but also warrior traditions say that if a warrior dies before he goes into the battle, he won't die if he gets killed. And then you start into the metaphysical, which I really don't want to touch on because I don't know much about metaphysics. For me, it's always been psychology and experiential development. But you can spend your entire life clinging to notions and possessions and relationships and habits and interests and opinions, but that kind of sucks because, for one thing, it makes your life very unpleasant. The more you attach yourself and cling to things, the more you struggle with the consequence of that attachment. And the second thing is that by the time you die, you have all that shit that's still stuck with you, and then you have to let go of that. And this causes a lot of people to be very afraid of death, because suddenly I'm faced with, in the next 5 minutes or the next 10 years or 5 months, if there's an illness, you know that it's going to take not long before it's the end, and I will lose all of this. A lot of fear and a lot of resistance, when actually you can start letting go of those bits by and by, so that they're still around. They are still things that you appreciate and value, relationships, opinions, or possessions, but you're not attached to them anymore. And so when the time comes that you die, it'll be much easier to transition. I once had an experience in the monastery where one of the ladies who would come and visit us, I think she was in her 50s, and she was diagnosed with cancer the second time, and this time she wasn't going to make it. And I'm getting a bit physical reaction, so I might look a bit tense now, but I remember those days because I sat with her 2 days. We took turns just being present with her. And there was one moment where she was way gone on morphine, and she would come back to us every now and again and say something or want some water. And at some point she wakes up and she's very clear, and she goes, yeah, that's how it is. The cup falls and then it breaks. And then she slept further. And so she had reached this letting go and this detachment where she wasn't clinging anymore. She was at peace with what was coming. And it was so very beautiful. And so I never told anybody this. Kissed her on the temple and I said, you can go now. And my turn was up, somebody else came in, and I heard that a few hours later she had died. And it was such a bizarre experience to say something like that to someone. But that's what happened. And it was a beautiful example of someone who had made her peace with death, who had let go of everything that she once thought was important or part of her or unmissable.
It's a powerful story that you just share. Actually, it's very touching. There's a question about this attachment, this clinging, because we can see this everywhere at the moment. It's just we're clinging to stuff. We don't let go. Is that the ego? Is it what we call this ego part that you were referring to? And from my understanding, it's all about this ego has to die. Has to. I don't know if it's possible, but that's a question actually. I'm not sure that it's possible that this ego has to die, because that's our physiology, biology, things like that. So,
yeah,
and you just mentioned stories where ego is back. You may have to meditate and so, but still, there's maybe you encounter someone, you'll get, furious, angry, you get attached to something. It's a practice, I guess. It's a practice that you have to do constantly.
Yeah.
Question for you. So, is your ego still here? And where are you in this journey of acceptance?
Well, if my ego wouldn't be here, you'd be talking to an empty room. You cannot be rid of your ego.
Is it the question that's come up for me? Is it still links into the whole the letting go is that metaphorical death, that dying before we die. So is as you said, I don't links into your question, Olivier, and Martin's answer. It's not necessarily that the ego has to die, but is it that our relationship with our ego has to die?
Our self-importance is the thing that should, but the thing that hopefully for people will die. The idea that we are different and special and important and have the right to be angry, to assert ourselves, to bully people, to dominate others, to tell them what to do, to make things happen in our own way. All of this is self-importance, right? Whatever we do is because this ego says, and that's how it's supposed to be. And that self-importance is, you cannot be without an ego, because then you are dead. But you can be less attached to the ego, which means your self-importance becomes less dominant, and it's still there. It will show up all the time. You will never be completely rid of self-importance, but instead of it being a sort of always present dictator who stands up and suddenly dominates what's going on and what you're saying and how you feel and how you react to people, it's more like it goes from being a big threatening bear to a little kitten that will sometimes climb up your leg and try to scratch you. So it's not as until the moment comes that something triggers you, and then yes, there's the bear again, and you find yourself doing that thing again that you knew hurts people or breaks stuff and you didn't want to do anymore. You cannot subdue the ego. You cannot tame it. You cannot force it to lay down and shut up. It's something that you can embrace as a normal, healthy part of who you are, and that you can learn to live with in a loving way. Many people try to battle their ego tendencies, and that is feeding the black wolf. The story about the white wolf fighting the black wolf in Indian mythology.
Yeah.
Who wins is the one you feed. So when you try to work against the ego, you just make it stronger. And that is one of the reasons that a monastery is such a battleground, because when people start, they think that, I'm going to tame this fucker. I'm going to rule, and I'm going to make sure that my ego will learn its place.
Ego versus ego.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's your own ego versus your own ego, and it just gets stronger. And then, and then you realize how big that is. And it's not until you reach a point that you give up, that you submit, that you decide to just let it be the way it is, because I've tried, and it happened to me. I spent 10 years trying to fight and work and be better, and I'd gotten so beaten, so exhausted, so frustrated with not making any progress, or making a bit of progress and then falling back to the same place. And at some point I just gave up. So I died to my mission of subduing my ego. And I remember standing at the door of the abbot's quarters I was a tailor in those days for the monastery, and I had to bring him some trousers. And so I knocked on the door, and he wasn't available. There were people walking in the door, out the door, and I'm standing there with trousers, just not knowing what to do with myself. And something clicked, and something went, you know what, I give up. And I kind of leaned against the door, and then I slid down and just sat there for an hour. I don't even remember what I was thinking, but I'd given up. I'd just, okay, I'd given up. I've completely submitted. And that's when he came out of his room and he saw me and he's like, Martin, come in. And that was the first time that he approached me in such a way, because normally it was a very stern, very, like a professional abbot, you know, not somebody that you joke around with. On ne tutoie pas, the abbot. But at that point, he saw the state that I was in, that I had died to something of my ego-driven struggle against my ego. And that's when he said, now you're ready, now you can come in.
Can I ask you a very nihilistic question?
Yeah.
Because I've just read about cosmic nihilism. I was just like,
cosmic nihilism.
Yeah, that's a trend. That's a new like branch of nihilistic. Okay. And it's almost like, okay, but what's the point to do that? You know, what's the point of not being self-important? Because there's no sense in this world, in this, you know, there's no values, there's no meaning, everything is random. And at the very end, the entire cosmos will die by its death. So everything will disappear in any case. So why bother? So the question is that, you know, so why should we do that?
Oh, you shouldn't. There's nobody saying that you should.
Okay,
this is a personal choice.
Could they argue that that's their way, that's their sense of letting go, of surrendering?
Maybe, but nihilism can also, it can be an escape for some people, a way to do away with responsibility. And I'm not judging anybody. I just don't know what nihilism really is for. I do know that, yes, nothing that you do is going to matter. Nothing. Because this is us, the entire history of the planet, and then there's the universe. But as long as you are you and I am me, there's something I can do for you. There's someone I can smile at. There is somebody who needs some help. As long as I have this ego and it is able to do something for someone, why not? It makes you feel good. It makes me feel good. Beautiful things happen. So why wouldn't you do something? And if that means committing yourself to a monastery, sure, why not? Not because it matters, just because that is the thing that you feel is your task in life. Or if it is being kind to people, like you feel that this is a natural expression of your being human, and then you do it. And that doesn't mean that it suddenly becomes meaningful or not nihilistic. It's doing something with the tool that you were given. This self, the body and the mind and the learning experiences and everything is a tool. You're going to just let it sit there and, you know, like an unused hammer? Or are you going to take this thing and a couple of nails and play with it and build something? That's a choice.
Everything's to be destroyed at the end.
Yeah, so?
I'm just questioning as well, you know, I'm just balancing.
Yeah, everything will be destroyed, of course.
Yeah. I have no answer as well myself. I'm just contemplating myself because I've just read about that. And, you know, for these guys, I'm not saying that I'm nihilistic. There's this, okay, what's the point in any case? So there's any choices. You can be self-important, you can be without any ego. And at the end, all choices converge to the same fate at the end. So why should you, I don't know. It's not the should, maybe I shouldn't put should, but is there any balance? Is there like something bad or good between all of these choices, basically?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's really what each individual feels belongs to their task as a human being, right. Task of living. Right? Sure, nothing matters, but you're here, and as a human being, you have a task, and that is to transform experience into memory. And the way you do that is your choice. And if you do that in a way that's nihilistic, where your experiences lead to nothing at all, because you don't do anything at all because you think that it doesn't matter anyway, okay, then that is the memory you're left with. Happy death. If you make your... you're not going to enjoy it. if you're going to do something which you feel is useful and your environment confirms that, yeah, this is something that other beings, other egos benefit from or enjoy, then you're going to have a very different experience in life and in death.
Because you brought meaning to that. There's a meaning, a sense of meaning to this?
No, because you fulfilled a task. You recognize that there was something in your life that you pick up as a task, and you went and shouldered that. And that changes everything about your life, and your life influences how you experience dying.
What interested me there is it was just something hit me about just the way you sort of separate. I said, no, you just do the task in front of you. And you were saying, Livia, about and that provides meaning.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the attachment. I mean, do we sometimes get overly attached to the meaning that we give something?
Yeah, always.
Only always.
Yes.
But aren't we built this way? Because
yes.
Like meaning is more. We need meaning to do things. That's not possible without that, I guess. And even in corporate world, they will say you need to give meaning to the people, otherwise the people will say, well, I don't fucking care. I don't engage in these activities.
Yeah, but these are nice things for the people, right? This has nothing to do with a spiritual approach to life. This is just what people do in life, on the world, on the planet during their life. And in that sense, yes, all the nice things for people, they don't matter. What matters is whether somebody realizes something about the nature of their existence. And so meaning falls into the human nice things category. A realization about what your existence is about, well, maybe that is meaningful. You can reach levels of that throughout your life if you're committed to doing the work, or to detaching yourself, which is another way of work. Or hopefully when you die, you have that insight about meaning at that point.
I've got another question. It comes back to the self-importance thing, and this is sort of heavily linked to the death thing. We've spoken to a lot of people about the fear of death and how it changes people. Do you think there's a direct link between the strength of that self-importance and whether a conscious or subconscious fear of death?
Yes. Yeah. The more you're attached to the more attachment there is in general, which is another way of expressing self-importance. Attachments are an expression of self-importance. The stronger that is, the more attachment, the more self-importance, the more threatening the idea of death is, because all this is so important to me and always has been. And all these things are so much part of me. And the prospect of this me not having all those things, the more it's like, somebody who possesses a lot and is faced with losing everything. If this person has a non-attached attitude, hey, look, it's just money. You can make more money. Lose my house. Okay, I can rent something. That person isn't going to suffer the prospect of losing it so much. But if that person is very, very clingy and very attached to these possessions, then that idea is going to throw him into an awful state of fear and anxiety and stress. So with death, it's the same thing. If you approach death and your self-importance is very big and your attachments, it's going to be an awful process for you. Now, the trouble is that you don't have to be facing death imminently. You have a very unpleasant experience in life, or undertone, or anxiety or fears, long before death even comes on your radar. If you are very attached to things, if you cling to things, if your self-importance is big, if you constantly have to assert yourself, because all of that says, I am me and I am important, and any situation or person who doesn't confirm that, devalues, disconfirms that what I think is important. And so on a subconscious level, it creates a sort of anxiety that, I don't know, I lost myself in the woods now. Somebody rescue me.
Is it's the way you said that it's not just the material things, it's even our sense of self and what we mean.
Material things are superficial.
And place in the world. But so it comes back to what you said about the illusion. It's like, as you said, it's that whole, when that illusion's gone, what's left? So anything that threatens that illusion, so even a difference of opinion is going to potentially shatter that illusion. Therefore, the more attached I am to the illusion, the harder I am going to fight against it. Therefore, the more sense of self-importance I'm going to have.
Yes. See, you're saying, yeah, material possessions, but that is the easiest possession to let go of.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. All you need is a bankruptcy to come out of it and say, but it's just things. In the end, it really doesn't matter. Right. So, and the bankruptcy is no light thing, and anybody who goes through it, I went through it, so
so did I. So
I sympathize.
Yes.
But
I didn't. Guys, don't.
Oh God, Olivier, come on!
You don't need it, so don't worry.
Keep up with the keep up.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm missing something, guys, right now. You know.
Yeah, you missed a really rich experience, my friend. Now, look, the attachment to material goods, to wealth, possession, that is something that a good firm slap upside the head loss, or stocks that you lose, or your house or your company, okay, that'll do it. And for most people, they will put them in the right frame that, look, it's just stuff. The real problem is ideas, the attachment to ideas. For example, the idea that I am more important than others. And this is an idea that no matter how much you tell yourself that you're a servant, that you're there for the common good, that you run a green company, there's always something that says, but me. And that idea is the hardest to eradicate. That will never go away. But the more you learn to accept that as a part of life and allow it to sit by your side instead of trying to fight it, which means it will always try to fight back, the easier it's going to be to live, and the more you'll be able to open up to life, listen to life, the more you'll be able to freely love people, live from the heart.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Again, please support the show by signing up at depthhangout.com or clicking on the subscribe button on your screen.